How come some people are able to listen to music and just instantly be able to play the chords back by ear without reading any sheet music or chord chart? Are they just geniuses? Well, maybe some of them are, but most people who can do this simply have trained their ears to recognize different chord progressions, and they have a strong understanding of something called diatonic chords. So the good news is you don't have to be some sort of genius to be able to train your ear. You just have to put the time and practice in, and the best place to start this process is to learn about diatonic chords. Later in this video, I'll show you how you can apply your knowledge of diatonic chords to figuring out chord progressions by ear. Now, I already made a video about diatonic chords of major keys where we analyze the diatonic chords as triads. But in today's lesson, we're going to analyze the diatonic chords of major keys as 7th chords instead of triads. If you're new to this topic, I do recommend you watch that video first, and I've linked it in the description below. I'll still give a brief overview in this video, so if you get bored or if you just want to jump ahead to the quick and easy pattern I show you later in the video, you can skip ahead to any other section using the timestamps in the description below. Let's first quickly discuss what diatonic chords are. The term might sound fancy, but really you can just think of diatonic chords as a close-knit family of chords connected to a key. So for example, in the key of G major, we have a group of diatonic chords, which are these right here. And in the key of C major, we have another group of diatonic chords, which are these right here. And so forth in every key. Just as a very quick side note, many chords will pop up as being diatonic chords of multiple different keys. For instance, you can see here that E minor 7 and A minor 7 can both be seen in the keys of G major and C major, right? We see them in both of these groups. However, they serve different harmonic functions depending on which key we're in. We can get into this more another day. I'm only pointing it out to you now so that you understand it's okay for a chord to be a diatonic chord of multiple different keys. I don't want you to be confused if you see the same chords popping up in different sets of diatonic chords. Anyway, back to our question, what are diatonic chords? So we already said they're a close-knit family of chords connected to a specific key. So what does that mean? That means that if you play a song in the key of G major, okay, there's a very good chance that you're going to see some of these chords in the song. That's because these chords are the diatonic chords of G major. Now, you might see other chords in the song as well. Songs can have any chords they want in them, not just the diatonic chords, but there's a good chance they will have a lot of these diatonic chords in them. Now, why are these chords connected to the key of G major? Well, the reason is because the notes that make up these chords are only notes that are in a G major scale. Let me show you what I mean if that doesn't make any sense. So first let's write out a G major scale. Now, the notes in our G major scale are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. But the scale can keep repeating infinitely in either direction. So after this F sharp, I could just keep writing the notes in the scale. So after F sharp, we go back to G again. Then after G, we have A. After A, we have B, C, and so on and so forth. Now, to create the first diatonic chord in our key, we are going to start on the root note of the scale, which is G, and we're going to move up in thirds. Or if it's easier to think of it this way, we're just going to hop over one note to get to the next. Let me show you. So we start with the note G, then we hop over A, and we get to B. Then we hop over C, and we get to D. Then we hop over E, and we get to F sharp. And voila, these notes, G, B, D, and F sharp, are the notes in our first diatonic 7th chord for the key of G major. And when I play these four notes together, G, B, D, F sharp, the chord I'm playing is called a G major 7 chord. And therefore, G major 7 is our first diatonic chord in the key of G major. So we will write its name right underneath there. Let's figure out the second diatonic chord using the same method of moving up in thirds or hopping over every other note. So this time we will build a chord from the second note in the scale, which is A, right? So we're going to start on A, then we're going to hop over B and get to C, then we're going to hop over D and get to E, and then we're going to hop over F sharp and get to G. And voila, these four notes, A, C, E, and G, are the notes in our second diatonic 7th chord in the key of G major. And when I play these four notes together, A, C, E, and G, sounds like this. And And the chord I'm playing is called an A minor 7th chord. And therefore, A minor 7 is the second diatonic chord in the key of G major. I drew this one a little bit lower just to make room for all the different chords we're going to write out. And just to clarify, so these 4 notes right here, these are the 4 notes that are in the first diatonic chord, and those 4 notes make up this chord, which is G major 7. Just as a heads up, when you see a triangle, that's a shorthand symbol for the word major. So this is G major 7. That's the name of the chord, and these are the notes in the chord. These are the notes in the chord, and this is the name of the chord. And this chord is A minor 7, okay? And when you see a lowercase m in a chord, it's a shorthand symbol for minor. Now let's figure out the third diatonic chord using the same method of moving up in thirds or hopping over every other note. So this time, we will build the chord starting from the third note in the scale, which is B, right? So we start on B, then we hop over C, and we get to D. Then we hop over E, and we get to F sharp, right? Then we hop over G, and we get to A. So the 4 notes in this chord are B, D, F sharp, and A. And when I play these 4 notes together, it sounds like this. B, D, F sharp, A. And the chord I'm playing is called B minor 7. Therefore, B minor 7 is the third diatonic chord in the key of G major. B minor 7. Now, just as a quick side note, in my previous video about diatonic triad chords of major keys, which is sort of like the part 1 video, and this is sort of like the part 2 video, we figured out all of these diatonic chords as triads instead of 7th chords. Now, what is the difference between a triad chord and a 7th chord? A triad is a chord that only has 3 notes in it, and a 7th chord is a chord that has 4 notes in it. I know it might seem weird that a 7th chord has 4 notes in it because you might assume a 7th chord would have 7 notes in it, but it doesn't, it only has 4. It's called a 7th chord because the 4th note in the chord is a 7th away from the root note of the chord. For example, in this B minor 7 chord, the interval distance between B and A is a 7th. And in the A minor 7th chord, the interval distance between the A and the G is also a 7th. Don't worry about this too much right now. If you want to learn more about the names of these different 7th chords, I have a video about the main types of 7th chords in a link in the description below. But moving forward, the main reason I bring this up is I want to show you how diatonic triad chords, which I went over in my previous video, differ from diatonic 7th chords, which I'm going over in this video. So if I were figuring out the notes in diatonic chords as triads, we would just stop after the 3rd note. So for example, if we were figuring out the first diatonic chord as a triad, we would start on the note G, which is the first note in the scale. Then we would hop over 1 note and get to B. Then we would hop over another note and get to D. And when we play just those 3 notes together, G, B, and D, the chord is called a G major chord, or a G major triad. If we wanted this first diatonic chord to be a 7th chord instead of a triad, we would just add that 1 extra note at the end. So after D, we would hop over E, and we would get to F sharp. And then we would get a G major 7 chord. So a regular old G major triad chord would just be G, B, and D, and that we would just write the chord name like that. Whereas a G major 7th chord is G, B, D, F sharp, and that's that G major 7 right there. I'll play them for you too. So here's our G major triad, G, B, D, and then here's our G major 7th chord, G, B, D, F sharp. So G major, G major 7. If we wanted to figure out the second diatonic chord as a triad, we would just do the same thing. We would only need 3 notes instead of 4. So we would just leave out the last note, which is G. So the chord would be A, C, E. A, C, E. Nice and simple. It's just a simple old A minor chord, or A minor triad. If we wanted to figure out the second diatonic chord as a 7th chord, we would add that extra note G at the end, and then it would become an A minor 7th chord. So this would be an A minor chord, just an A minor triad, A, C, E. That's just an A minor triad. And then if we have an A minor 7th chord, A, C, E, G. A minor 7th chord, so A minor 7. Now you figure this one out for me. How about this third diatonic chord? If we wanted to figure out the notes in this chord just as a triad, what would the notes be? We would start at the same place, B, hop over C, get to D, hop over E, get to F sharp, but then we would just stop at F sharp. So we would just play the notes, I'll draw a little line here, B, D, and F sharp. So we would just leave out that fourth note, right? And if we're playing B, D, and F sharp together, this chord is a B minor chord, or B minor triad. And if we wanted the chord to be a seventh chord, we would just add that A at the end. We would hop over one more time from F sharp, hop over one last time to get to that A, and then we would have the seventh chord, which is B minor 7. So a B minor triad sounds like this. B, D, F sharp. And a B minor 7th chord sounds like this. B, D, F sharp, A. So we have B minor triad and then B minor 7th chord. Now, you might be asking yourself, okay, why do we have two sets of diatonic chords? You know, one of them is triads and one of them is 7th chords. Which chords should I try to practice and memorize? The 7th chords or the triads? And all I will say is you can really think of them as being very similar to each other. And please, whatever you do, don't stress too much right now the difference between them. Because for the most part, they serve a lot of the same harmonic functions and can actually oftentimes be pretty interchangeable. Not always, but a lot of the time. All I will say is if you want to focus on learning something more simple at first, just practice and play and learn the diatonic triad chords. If you want to get a little deeper into these diatonic chords, then play and practice them as 7th chords so you learn all 4 of the possible notes in them. At the end of the day, it's not going to hurt you to practice them one way or the other. Playing, practicing, and memorizing either one or both will be valuable. So just do what feels right for you and what you think you can handle at this time. If you just practice them as triads, that's totally cool and will make it 1,000 times easier to learn them as 7th chords later. If you love the way 7th chords sound and you want to practice them as 7th chords right off the bat, then do that. You really can't lose either way. Now, no more talk about triads in this video because this video is about 7th chords. So let's figure out the 4th diatonic chord using the same method of moving up in thirds. So we start on the 4th note of the scale, which is C, right? Then we hop over D and we get to E. Then we hop over F sharp and we get to G. Then we hop over A and we get to B. So the notes are C, E, G, and B. And when I play these 4 notes together, C, E, G, and B, the chord I'm playing is called a C major 7th chord. Therefore, C major 7 is the 4th diatonic chord in the key of G major. And this is what it sounds like. C, E, G, B. C major 7. Now let's figure out the 5th diatonic chord. So we're going to start on the 5th note of the scale, which is, you tell me, it's D, right? Then we hop over the next note, which is E, and we get to F sharp. Then we hop over G, we get to A, and then we hop over B, and we get to C. So the notes we have are D, F sharp, A, and C. And when I play these 4 notes together, D, F sharp, A, and C, the chord I'm playing is called a D dominant 7 chord. And people usually refer to this chord as D7 for short. So I'm just going to write D7. So whenever you see a chord like that looks like that says D7, its real name is D dominant 7, but we just call it D7 for short. So therefore, D7, or D dominant 7, is the 5th diatonic chord in the key of G major. And this is what it sounds like. D, F sharp, A, C, D dominant 7. Just as a side note, if you're enjoying this video so far, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment to say hey. And if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one in the future. Now, let's figure out the 6th diatonic chord in the key of G major. So we will build this chord starting from the 6th note in the G major scale, which is, you tell me, it's E. But just since we're running off the page, I'm just going to erase these just to make a little more room. So I'm gonna move those notes E and F sharp over just a hair. So E and F sharp. So this chord is going to have 4 notes in it, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. So why don't you tell me what those 4 notes will be, okay? So the first note we know is going to be E, right? That one's easy. E for easy. Okay, then we're going to hop over this note and get to which note comes after F sharp in the scale? It's G, right? So we're going to get to G. Okay? Then, do you know the next one? From G, we're going to hop over A and get to B, right? Then, how about the last one? We're going to be on B, we're going to hop over C, and we're going to get to D. So, the notes are E, G, B, and D. And when I play these 4 notes together, the name of the chord that I'm playing is called an E minor 7th chord. E minor 7. Therefore, E minor 7 is the 6th diatonic chord in the key of G major. And this is what it sounds like. E, G, B, D, E minor 7. And last but not least, let's figure out the 7th diatonic chord in the key of G major. So we will build this chord starting from the 7th note in the scale, which is F sharp, right? So this chord we know it has 4 notes, okay? And what's the first note? It's going to be F sharp. So that's our starting place, okay? And then what comes after F sharp? After F sharp, we're going to hop over G, right? And we land on A. So F sharp, then A. Then we hop over B and we get to C. And you try to figure out this one. After C, we have E, right? So the notes are F sharp, A, C, and E. And when I play these 4 notes together, F sharp, A, C, and E, the chord I am playing is called an F sharp minor 7 flat 5, also known as F sharp half diminished 7. So you could see this chord written like this, F sharp minor 7 flat 5, or for F sharp half diminished, this symbol like that is a little symbol for half diminished. So this thing is saying F sharp half diminished 7, and this is saying F sharp minor 7 flat 5. These are really just 2 different names for the same chord, so you can call it either one, and whether you're calling it F sharp half diminished 7 or F sharp minor 7 flat 5, that is the 7th diatonic chord in the key of G major. And this is what it sounds like. F sharp, A, C, E. So, as you can see, all 7 of these diatonic chords, G major 7, A minor 7, C major 7, D 7, oh, I forgot B minor 7, E minor 7, and F sharp half diminished 7, all 7 of these chords were created using the notes in the G major scale, right? I don't see the note, for instance, A flat in any of these chords, do you? Because A flat is not a note in the G major scale. The diatonic chords of a key are only made up of notes in the corresponding scale, which in this case is a G major scale. So that's why the only notes in these chords are the notes in a G major scale. Make sense? Now, it would be pretty crazy if the way you had to figure out the notes in every diatonic chord was using this method of moving up in thirds, and you had to think through this whole process every single time. But fortunately, there's a very simple pattern we can follow to figure out the diatonic chords of any major key in a much easier way. So first, let's identify the chord quality of each of these chords. I just rewrote everything to make it a little bit cleaner looking. So first, let's identify the chord quality of each of these chords, meaning what type of 7th chord are each of these 7 diatonic chords. Okay, so the first one is a major 7th chord, right? So I'm just going to write major 7th, okay? The second one is a minor 7th chord, right? And so I'm ignoring the root of each of these chords. I'm just looking at the quality of it. So I'm saying, okay, this is a minor 7th chord. This one right here, the third, is also a minor 7th chord, right? What about this 4th one? This 4th one is a major 7th, right? Now, the 5th one, this one is a dominant 7, okay? So we're just gonna do a 7. The 6th one is a minor 7th, right? And then the 7th one is a half diminished 7th chord. So I'm just going to write half diminished 7. And guess what? Here's the cool part. The diatonic chords always follow this exact same pattern. Okay, so the first diatonic chord in a major key is always going to be a major 7th chord. The second one is always going to be a minor 7th chord. The third one is always going to be a minor 7th chord. The 4th one is always going to be a major 7th chord. The 5th one's always going to be dominant 7. 6th one's always going to be minor 7. And the 7th one's always going to be a half diminished 7. So let me show you how easy it can be to figure out the diatonic chords of any major key if we know this pattern. So first, let's write out this pattern of chord qualities using Roman numerals, because it's very important that we start thinking about diatonic chords as numbers so we can begin applying them to things like chord progressions and analyzing their harmonic function. If that sounds like gibberish to you, don't worry, just stay with me here. So for the first chord, we are going to write a number 1 as a Roman numeral since it's the first chord. But here's the thing. Whenever we have a major chord, we are going to write an uppercase number 1. And whenever we have a minor chord, we are going to write a lowercase number 1. So is this first chord a major or minor chord? G major 7. It's a major chord, right? So we are going to write an uppercase Roman numeral 1, like this. And since it's a 7th chord, we can also write a little number 7 after it. If we were writing this chord out just as a triad, we would just have it be the uppercase number 1. But since it's also a 7th chord, we add this little number 7 after it. And we don't write the little 7 as a Roman numeral, just a normal 7. Don't ask me why. That's just the way it is. So now let's write the second chord quality as a Roman numeral. So we're going to write a number 2 because it's the second chord in the scale, right? But will it be uppercase or lowercase? Since it's a minor chord, right, a minor 7, it will be lowercase. So we're going to write 2 like that, and then with a little 7 next to it, since it's a minor 7th chord. Now let's write the third chord as a Roman numeral. So we're going to write a number 3, right, because it's the third chord. But will it be uppercase or lowercase? You tell me. It will be lowercase because it's a minor chord, right, B minor 7. So we're going to write the number 3 in lowercase Roman numerals with a 7, just like that. How about the fourth chord? Do we write this as an uppercase or lowercase number 4? So, since this one is a major chord, we will write it as an uppercase 4, like this. So my uppercase Roman numeral 4, and then I'm going to put a little 7 next to it. Okay, this one's a bit trickier. How about the fifth chord? Uppercase or lowercase number 5? This one is trickier because this chord is a dominant 7th chord, which doesn't have the word major or minor in its name, so it's not quite as obvious. But a dominant 7th chord is a type of major chord. Why do I know that? Because a dominant 7th chord is a major triad, D, F sharp, A, with a minor 7th, which is the note C, added onto it. And even though it has a minor 7th, it's still overall a major chord, because the foundation of the chord, the meat of the chord, is that major triad, which is D, F sharp, and A. I don't want to get too much into this because I talk a lot more about this stuff in detail in my easy chord theory video about 7th chords, which, as I mentioned earlier, is linked below. But I think it's worth taking a little tangent to explain this. And all I will say is, if you don't fully understand what I'm about to say, don't worry about it for now. Just keep watching the video, because for now, you can just remember that a dominant 7th chord is a type of major chord. And then later on, you can go watch my video about 7th chords to understand more about why it is a major chord. So here's my quick little side tangent, okay? The note that always determines whether a chord is major or minor is the 3rd degree note. This is a very important thing, I think, for people to know. That's why I'm taking this little tangent. So, and in this case of this D7 chord, the 3rd degree note is the F sharp. So you might be saying, hey, wait, why is F sharp the 3rd degree note? It's technically, the second note in the chord D7, right? D, F sharp, A, C. That's the second note in the chord. And then F sharp is the 7th note in the scale of G major, right? So why on earth would we call this F sharp the 3rd degree? Well, because if we were analyzing just this chord, okay, just this D dominant 7 chord, and we're no longer going to be thinking about it in the context of G major, okay? So we're not in G major world, we're just zooming in on this chord D dominant 7. That's all we're thinking about and analyzing. We are actually going to think of it in the context of its own root note, which is D, okay? So D dominant 7, right? The root note is D. So we're actually going to think about a D major scale, which is, I'll write out the notes, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and C sharp. These are the notes in our D major scale, okay? So these are the notes that we're going to be now thinking about. And as you can see, F sharp is the 3rd note in that scale. So that's why we would refer to the note F sharp as the 3rd degree of a D7 chord, okay? And since D to F sharp, this interval distance right here, is a major third, it makes it a major chord, okay? Another way to think of it is, since that note F sharp is part of the D major scale, it's a major chord. If the chord had a flattened third degree, meaning if we took that note F sharp and we flattened it, which is the same as moving it down by 1/2 step, and it became the note F natural instead of F sharp, so we were now playing the chord D, F natural, A and C, okay, like that. If we were playing these notes instead of D, F sharp, A and C, then suddenly we would have a minor chord, because D to F natural is a minor third. So no matter what kinds of extensions are on the chord, if the chord is a D7, a D7 flat 9 sharp 11, a D minor 13, whatever the crazy chord of the name is, if you want to determine if the chord is a major or minor chord, all you need to look at is that third degree note in the chord and see if it is a major third or a minor third away from the root note. Another way to think about it is, if that third degree note is part of the major scale of the root note, the way that F sharp is part of a D major scale, then it's going to be a major chord. It's going to be a major third and a major chord. If the third degree note has been flattened from the major scale, the way we turned F sharp into F natural, because we flattened it, then it's going to be a minor chord or a minor third. Okay, no more of this. I feel like I'm opening a whole other can of worms that we just don't need to go down right now, because it's really not, it's not what this video is about. And otherwise, if I went down every rabbit hole, my videos would be hours and hours long. So if you're confused still, have no fear. I promise, if you just break this down a little more slowly, just go watch my other video if you want to analyze this in more detail. I also have a whole other video that's all about intervals and 7th chords, which I will also link in the description below. So there are 2 videos down there that you can sink your teeth into if you're still confused about all this. And then I promise you it will become very clear and make sense. Moving on. Okay, so since the 5th chord, D7, is a dominant 7th chord, which is a type of major chord, we are going to write an uppercase Roman numeral number 5, right? Like this, because dominant 7 chords are this type of major chord. So we're going to uppercase 5, and then we're going to write a little 7 next to it. Cool? Now, what about the 6th chord? Will this one be uppercase or lowercase? Well, you tell me. Since it's a minor chord, it will be lowercase. So we are going to write a lowercase 6 with a little 7 next to it. And last but not least, what about the 7th chord? Now this one is also a bit tricky, because if we were referring to it as F sharp half diminished 7, remember how I said we could refer to this chord as 2 different names? So if we were referring to it as F sharp half diminished 7, then it doesn't have the word major or minor in its name. However, if we refer to it as F sharp minor 7 flat 5, which is the other name, then you can see that yes, it does have the word minor in it, right? F sharp minor 7 flat 5. So this one is a minor chord. So I'm going to write a lowercase 7, and then I can also write a little half diminished symbol and then a number 7. Okay, so now that we have our Roman numeral pattern written here at the top, this is sort of like our formula up there, okay? Let me show you how easy it is to figure out the name of every diatonic chord in a major key. So let's figure out the diatonic chords of the key F major, okay? So first we're going to write out an F major scale. So we have F, then we have G, A, B flat, C, D, and E, okay? So these are the notes in my F major scale. Now we're just going to take each of these 7 notes in the scale and apply the chord qualities to them. So let me show you what I mean. The first chord is a major 7, right? So that means our first diatonic chord will just be F major 7. Then the second chord will be what? We know it's going to be G something, right? Because it starts with G. And then minor 7, right? Because it's a lowercase 2 with a 7, minor 7. All right, the third chord is A minor 7. The fourth chord is B flat major 7. The fifth chord is C7. The sixth chord is D minor 7. And the 7th chord is E half diminished 7, also known as E minor 7 flat 5. Wasn't that easy? So as you can see, it always follows the exact same pattern no matter which major key you're in. The first note in the scale, you're always going to turn into a major 7th chord. The second note in the scale, you're always going to turn it into a minor 7th chord. The third note in the scale, you're going to always turn into a minor 7th chord. The fourth note in the scale will always turn into a major 7th chord. The fifth note will always turn into a dominant 7th chord. The sixth note will always turn into a minor 7th chord. And the 7th note will always turn into a half diminished 7th chord. Now let's try to figure out the diatonic chords of another key. How about A major? So the notes in an A major scale are A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, and G sharp. Now before we write out the chord names, I just want to point something out because it's a little confusing. I can see that these three major chords, if we look at just these three major chords, which are the first chord, the fourth chord, and the fifth chord, two of them turn into major 7th chords. Like here, A, this becomes, I'm giving you the answers away. So this becomes an A major 7th. And then the fourth chord becomes a D major 7th. But then the fifth chord does not become an E major 7, it just becomes an E dominant 7. But the Roman numerals don't differentiate it at all, right? They just have an uppercase number with a 7. So sometimes people, to specify the difference between a dominant 7th chord and a major 7th chord, sometimes people will write a uppercase M in the Roman numerals like this. So they would write 1 M 7 to indicate that it's a major 7th chord and not just a dominant 7th chord, okay? So they would write that for the 1 7, and then they would write for major 7 for the fourth chord, okay? And then they would write the fifth chord just like that, just with a 5 and a 7. And so this uppercase M stands for major, okay? So lowercase m is minor, uppercase M is major. And so this is telling us it's a 1 major 7th chord. This is a 4 major 7th chord. And then this would just be a 5th dominant 7th chord. Okay, so you might see it written with the M, you might see it written without it. To be honest, most people usually don't write that uppercase M in which case you just have to sort of know that the first and fourth chords are major 7ths and the fifth chord is a dominant 7. But really, that's not too difficult to memorize, I think. I think, especially once you practice this a little bit. And by the way, if you want to practice all of this stuff more, I do have a lot of printable practice worksheets that are available in a link in the description below. Those worksheets can really help you drill and practice all the stuff we're learning in these lessons. So if you want to practice what we're learning here, go click on that link and check out some of those worksheets. So I know I already gave away the names of those three, but let's just keep going. So what would be the second chord? The second chord would be a B minor 7, right? What about the third chord? So we know it's C sharp something, right? And it's a lowercase 3, so that means it's going to be minor, right? Minor 7. So we have C sharp minor 7. We already determined this one is D major 7. This one is E dominant 7 or E7. The sixth chord, what is that? That's going to be F sharp. It's a lowercase 6, right? So it's minor 7. F sharp minor 7. Then the seventh chord is going to be G sharp something, G sharp half diminished 7, or G sharp minor 7 flat 5, like that. Cool? Okay, we're going to do one more as an example, but as I said, if you want more practice figuring out the diatonic chords of different major keys using this method, I have practice worksheets with the answer keys, so you can check yourself, available to download in a link in the description below. That way you can really drill in the concepts we're learning in this video as homework. Okay, so the last one we will do is, let's figure out the diatonic chords in the key of A flat major. So first I'm going to write out the notes in an A flat major scale. So A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, and G. And the chords are, so this one is going to be A flat something, right? A flat, It's an uppercase 1, right? Major 7. Okay? What about the second chord? The second diatonic chord is going to be B flat something, B flat. It's a lowercase 2, right? So B flat minor 7. Okay, what about the third chord? We know it's going to be C something. C, it's a lowercase 3, so it's going to be C minor, right? C minor 7. The fourth chord is going to be, we know it's going to be D flat something. D flat, and then, is it a major or minor chord? Well, it's uppercase number 4, so it's going to be major, D flat, major 7, right? The fifth chord is going to be E flat something, and it's going to be a dominant 7 chord, so E flat 7. The sixth chord is going to be F something. We have a lowercase 6, right? So it's going to be F minor 7. And last but not least, we have G, and this is going to be G minor 7 flat 5, or G half diminished 7. See, it's actually pretty simple when you see that it always follows the exact same formula and pattern, right? I think it's all very cool. Now, I said I would show you later in this video how we can begin to apply our knowledge of diatonic chords to ear training and learning to recognize chord progressions. It's a process that I like to call tagging, and it's one of the reasons why it's so helpful to think about chords as numbers. Because the relationship between these chords actually sounds the same no matter what key we are in. And if we just analyze the chords as numbers, then we can really listen to and track the similarities. Let me show you what I mean. So we're going to take a very common chord progression that you've probably been hearing your entire life, but you may not have realized you were always hearing the same chord progression because you never were able to put a name to it. So we're going to look at a 1-6-2-5 chord progression, okay?
1, 6, 2, 5.
We can write it with or without the sevenths. We could also write it as
1, 7, 6, 7, 2, 7, 4, 5, 7.
Now, first I'm going to write out all the diatonic chords in the key of C major, okay? So we have C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, and B half diminished 7, okay? I'm also going to write out the diatonic chords in the key of G major. So we have G major 7, A minor 7, B minor 7, C major 7, D 7, E minor 7, and F sharp half diminished 7. So I just wrote it out a little more neatly. We have the 1-6-2-5 chord progression without sevenths and then with the sevenths, okay? So first let's write out this chord progression in the key of C major. So we're going to be looking at these chords up here because we're in C major. All right, so the first is the 1 chord as a major 7th chord, so C major 7. Then the 6th chord is A minor 7. Then the 2nd chord is D minor 7. And then the 5th chord is G dominant 7. Cool. If we were to write this chord progression out just without the 7th chords, we would just have C, then A minor, then D minor, and then G. So without 7th chords and with 7th chords, okay? Now let's write out this chord progression in the key of G, okay? So the key of G, we would start with the 1 chord is G major 7, right? Then the 6th chord is E minor 7. Then the 2nd chord is A minor 7, right? Then the 5th chord is D7, right? That's 1-6-2-5 in the key of G major, all right? And then we could write it also without 7th chords. We would just have G, E minor, A minor, and then D, okay? So this chord progression, the 1-6-2-5 chord progression, can be found in an endless amount of songs. Songs like Heart and Soul, Stand By Me, Sherry, Earth Angel, Dear Future Husband, just to name a few. So let me show you. I'm just going to play this chord progression in the key of C over and over again, but I'll sing the different songs on top of the chord progression so you can see how it's always the same chord progression. So I'm going to now play through the 1, 6, 2, 5 chord progression in the key of C major, and I'm going to play it without 7th chord, so just C, A minor, D minor, G. So we have C, A minor, D minor, and G, and that's 1, 6, 2, 5. Heart and soul, I fell in love with you, lost control, the way a fool would do gladly, because you held me tight and stole a kiss in the night. Sherry, Sherry baby, Sherry, Sherry baby, earth angel, will you be mine, my darling dear? I love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you, earth angel, earth angel. Okay, there's another one. Dear future husband, here's a few things you'll need to know if you wanna be my one and only, oh my life. There's also Stand By Me. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. So that was also 1, 6, 2, 5. So as you can see, all of these songs I just sang had the exact same chord progression. And once we start telling our ears, hey, that's what a 1, 6, 2, 5 chord progression sounds like, over time our ears will start being able to recognize and identify the way that chord progression sounds. So the first step is just identifying what the chord progression is, which, as I said, is I call tagging. So once we tag it as a 1, 6, 2, 5, we can begin listening more closely and trying to remember what a 1, 6, 2, 5 sounds like. Now check this out. I'm going to play Heart and Soul, but I'm going to play it in both the key of C and then the key of G. And so you'll see how the chord progression is the same. It sounds the same regardless of what key we're in. Okay, so first I'm going to play Heart and Soul in the key of C, and let's play it with 7th chord just for fun, because this one sounds nice with 7th chords. So I'm going to play C major 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, and then G7. Okay? Heart and soul, I fell in love with you, lost control, the way a fool would do gladly, because you held me tight and stole a kiss in the night. Right? 1, 6, 2, 5. Cool. Now I will play it in the key of G major, okay? Heart and soul, I fell in love with you, lost control, the way a fool would do gladly, because you held me tight and stole a kiss in the night. That one's pretty high for me to sing in the key of G, but as you can see, this chord progression, it works over the song no matter which key we're in. So if I play 1, 6, 2, 5, I will be playing the song. It doesn't matter what key we're in. So we transposed it from one key of C to the key of G. So it's the same song, just in a different key. This is another reason why it's helpful to think about chords as numbers, because when we think about chords as numbers, we can, as I said, start to recognize their relationship to each other. You know, you start to learn that, okay, 1, 6, 1, that's what a 1, 6, 1 sounds like. Right? I played C, A minor, C, 1, 6, 1. And if I play 1, 2, 1, that's what a 1, 2, 1 sounds like. Or if I play 1, 1, 5, 1, it sounds like that. And no matter which key I'm in, that relationship will sound the same. Let me play it for you in the key of G now. So this is 1, 5, 1 in the key of G. So I'm going to play G, D, G. 1, 5, 1. That's in key of G. If I want to play 1, 6, 1, 1, 6, 1, I'm playing G, E minor, G. If I want to play 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Cool. So if we start thinking about chords as numbers, we can start identifying these chord progressions and trying to train our brain to remember what they sound like. And it can be as simple as just analyzing songs that you're listening to. I would start off with very simple songs and start out with simple chord progressions and see if you can recognize them and remember what they sound like. Because as I said, you've been listening to these chord progressions your entire life. You just haven't identified them and tagged them, so your brain hasn't been remembering what they sound like because you haven't been identifying them. Imagine you've been seeing colors your whole life, but you never put a name to any of those colors until now. So it's sort of the same concept. And once you name it, then you can begin to remember and recognize it when you come across it in the wild. And another reason why, there are many reasons, but I'm just going to name these two for now. Another reason why it's so good to think about chords as numbers is because we can then very easily transpose. See how it was quite easy for me to transpose it from the key of C to the key of G because I know what a 1-6-2-5 chord progression is in both of those keys, okay? And that's much easier for me to think about it that way than it is for me to sit there trying to transpose like the root of each chord up a fifth. Like I'm gonna move C up a fifth to G, A up a fifth to E, D up. I mean, you could think of it that way, but for me, it's easier to just go, okay, 1-6-2-5. All right, I know what that is in the key of C. All right, I'll play that in the key of G. That's easier for my brain to process. So that's another reason why. There are so many other reasons too, but I think that is all for today. I do want to make more videos later down the road about ear training and teaching you guys different chord progressions and sort of practicing and reviewing what they sound like so you can train your ears with me. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, let me know in the comments below. I think it would be helpful for people, but let me know if you agree. And if you want to dive deeper into learning music theory in general and practice what we learn in these videos I share here, go check out my Patreon because I have tons of practice worksheets and quizzes, video summary PDFs, and helpful handouts that you can download and print out if you're a supporter there. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend you think might like it, and leave a comment. Every time you share my video with someone else or do things like leave a comment, it really helps me out. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of you who do engage with my videos like that. And if you just like to watch and not engage, that is totally okay too, and I appreciate and I'm thankful for you just being here. So thank you to all of you who made it to the end of this long video. And if you're new to my channel, hello and welcome. I post one video a week, and if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you know whenever I share a new video. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day or night, and I will see you guys next week.